So we're in Daniel 6 tonight. I was looking in the Wilds book for Dare to be a Daniel. That's a great song. It's not in this version of the Wilds book. Otherwise, I'd love us to sing it. But it does say a lot to have a song about someone who dares to stand alone. It's got to be really difficult. And what has struck me again in just thinking through this story is seeing Daniel's, his immediate obedience. Remember that last week? He just takes action and he goes and he prays like normal and doesn't pause at all. It's so significant. And we'll appreciate the end of the story. This is the classic Daniel and the Lion's Den. I'm hoping that Indy will see this and be amazed at the pictures. Maybe not, we'll see. But we do want to set some context. We'll just remind ourselves where we've been. And so one thing I'm going to mention is we showed this last week. The stories of Daniel match each other. Really interesting. And chapters 2 through 7 in particular, those are the ones written in Aramaic, which was kind of the international language of Daniel's day. So that section really was expected to get a wide audience. A lot of people would be familiar with these kings at that time, and they would really catch attention to this. And then there's a parallel. Chapters 2 and 7 are about these 4 kingdoms, whether from a dream or a vision. Chapters 3 and 6 are about deliverance. And then chapters 4 and 5, it's how God interacts with proud Nebuchadnezzar and then Belshazzar and seeing how they respond to him in different ways. And at the end of our time tonight, we're really going to see chapter 6 and chapter 3 have many, many things in common. And so this is not like a human like, ooh, I have an idea. This is really clever. It's like right here in the text. It's so clear that God wants us to see these stories matching each other. And then help us get a sense of the story up until this point. We've talked about Daniel. He had this track record under this new king, Darius, who is set over the kingdom, likely assigned there, appointed to this position over Babylon by Cyrus. Even in the new administration, Daniel continues on in this high position. He has consistent integrity from the kingdom of Babylon, carries over to now serve in Medo-Persia. He's in the top 3, and then in the top 3, he starts to really show himself to be the very highest, right? How do his peers respond to that? Oh, they're jealous. We got to find dirt on this guy. And they look and they explore and they can't find anything from his past. Nothing. He's filed all his taxes the right way. No questionable pictures from his yearbook. Nothing. No posts that he should have deleted. It's all right. Clean. And the only thing they find is that he's such a strong believer in God. And that's the only unusual thing about him. We got to get him on that. And so that's what's happened. They convinced Darius to proclaim this new law. He's tricked and flattered by these men into saying, well, you can't pray to anybody except me for a month, which is probably more of a political show than an actual claim that he's God. But like we said earlier, how does Daniel respond? Doesn't matter. I'm going to obey God rather than man. Instantly. He just directly focuses on God's command. And so because of that, Darius is stuck and he realizes, oh, what did I do? No, Do you remember how long he took when the officials bring this up to him? Oh, Darius. Your boy Daniel, I'm paraphrasing here, but the idea is the guy you like the most, he's actually broken your law and he needs to die. How long does Darius take to try to fight through the paperwork? Up until the end of the day. Yeah, like sundown. He's trying all day long. And what's interesting is these magicians there, or the wise men, these presidents, they leave him there for a whole day. We'll just let you think about this for a day. They know he's stuck. And so the question now is what happens next? Daniel immediately obeys, Darius delays, because he realizes the implication of the situation. Wait, that means Daniel, I have to get rid of him? I was considering that scenario. This believer is high up in this person's kingdom, but now he has to get rid of him, and he doesn't want to. Does that sound like someone else in the Old Testament? I was thinking of Joseph. Think of Joseph. He's in Potiphar's house, right? He's high up. God blesses Potiphar's house. Potiphar comes home from work and his wife is upset. She makes an accusation against Joseph. He could have killed Joseph, but he just throws him in prison, which maybe gives us a hint. He doesn't buy this story. He knows his wife, and he knows Joseph too. This doesn't match. But either way, he's got to save face and get rid of this guy, and now he's going to lose God's blessing on his house. And the scripture says he's furious. I'd be angry too if I had to lose this really good setup. That's Darius as well. He's like my favorite. He's doing so well. There's no fault in him. He's helping to save money for the kingdom, and he's stuck. And so this is where we jump into the rest of the story. We're going to pick up the reading then in verse 15. I'll read down to verse 18 for now. And we'll go on from there. So verse 15, then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king establisheth may be changed. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and... Then the king commanded, they brought Daniel, cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. So you hear these officials coming back to Darius, and so they're going to remind him, Darius, remember this? We got to push you to this. They have this plan. Verse 15 says they assembled, and remember from last week, we noticed verse 6, verse 11, and now verse 15 is like this secret planned huddle. Oh, you happen to be visiting the king? Oh, I was too. Hey, let's go in together. All this pressure against him. And when they first saw the king, they greeted him, O king, live forever. Now, what's the first thing they say to him? No, O king, we're just going to come in and tell you how it is. This is a problem. You need to fix this. They wait to the end of the day. They agree together. They come back. Remember this. And it's like they're telling the king what to do. He's so stuck. He's paralyzed. He can't move forward. And they're going to remind him, King, this is the law of the Medes and Persians. You know this. No decree nor statute which the king establisheth may be changed. You wrote this law. You signed it. You started this. You need to finish it. He is the king, but he's still subject to the law in that case. And so they're reminding him of something he's been trying to avoid all day long. I got to find the loophole. There's got to be some exception clause here. Nothing. And I mean, we had very good ideas last week. He should have declared, let them feed the lions first, right? Or let's leave the lion's den open by accident, and then I'll throw him in. But no, he couldn't come up with those ideas because the Lord wanted Daniel to be thrown into a den of hungry lions. Right? And I imagine these men are so excited because they kind of step away from the scene now, and they're like, we got him. The trap is sprung. We're rid of the guy. Yes! High five. Have a good night, guys. We finished our job, right? Daniel's done. Yeah, that's it. He's toast.
Tomorrow morning, we move forward with our plan.
Yeah, and then we'll do rock, paper, scissors to see who takes his place. I don't know, like they're glad to be rid of him. He's kept them back. He's been a nuisance to them, probably convicted them of sin, whatever else. So verse 16, right? Here's the king. He commands it. Notice nothing. Daniel does nothing in these verses. Who's the one doing all the action? It's the king. His fingerprints are all over this. He commands, bring Daniel, cast him into the den of lions. And then as they're doing so, he says something to Daniel first. It's really interesting. Right? He knows that Daniel serves God. So that part of their accusation is accurate. But then he says, he will deliver thee. right? Now it's tricky in the Aramaic. It could be he will deliver thee or may he deliver thee. It's the exact same like letters and they write it down. What do you think? Is it like a promise? I know he's going to deliver you.
That's what I was wondering. I was contemplating. I'm like, was it like him deliver you like in like a kind of like condescending way, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's on Daniel's side. He hopes he delivers him.
Or is he believing that?
Yeah. Does the king have strong faith here?
Or is it kind of like when they, you say, tell the king live forever and ever? It's kind of a hopeful thing to say.
Yeah.
That would
He, like,
that'd be a
hopes
good
that.
idea, because obviously no one has ever lived forever, at least statistically what they would see, so, why would they else say that? So things like that, yeah.
Yeah. Cliff, what are you thinking?
Your age.
His anxiety bothered him all night. He didn't sleep, so he wasn't sure if he was going to be saved or not.
Yeah, like if he can't sleep all night, that shows me he wasn't very confident. I mean, it's a hope, it's a wish, right? I hope, have a good day. I can't guarantee you're having a good day, but I'm hopeful that you will.
Make it feel good too.
Yeah, and
On your side a little bit here.
yeah,
And it's a little bit, a lot of hidden.
it's just so ironic. I signed your death warrant. I hope you have a good day. It's like, if you're the king, you're kicking yourself. I can't believe they got me to sign that law. What was I thinking, right? How am I going to get out of this? And we've laughed at that last week because they're calling him a god while they lie to him. Some god, he gets tricked into a law. Like clearly he's not the true God.
It doesn't even have the power to do anything, really. But
Yeah, he's stuck, right? And they throw him into this den of lions. Well, yeah, let's talk about that. What's the den look like? Well, he's thrown into the den of lions. When I go to the end of the chapter, they talk about people hitting the ground. So it's likely like a pit of some kind. And I tried to find different pictures that helped to depict this. Actually, there's one more comment I think I had here. Oh, no, there it is. Just some idea where it's like a cave or a hole in the ground. And then they have a hole to throw people in. And we're going to read, we just read in verse 17, they put a stone on top of it so you can't climb out. And no lion can get out, obviously. But then later in the story, the king calls and Daniel answers him. And he hears him before they open the stone.
How many lines do you think were in there? Did you research that or anything?
No, I didn't come up with that. Likely, I'm guessing, well, more than one, right? Several. And I believe I've heard other accounts where they just don't feed them much at all. So that way, when it's dinner time, they are starving. They're really aggressive.
There's at least two, because otherwise we'd be down the line.
Yeah, exactly. So more than one. Let's look at verse 17. Let's appreciate this because you see how final this is. Put the stone on, covers the den. Right? Then you've got to seal it. Get this ring, seal it, some kind of wax, and multiple rings. And the king is like, final answer, seal it. We talked about funerals. You've been in a cemetery. That last step is hard. When you say goodbye to them, right? But then they have the funeral. But then you go to the cemetery, and then it's in the ground. And then on top of that, so a year and a half ago, our boys, they saw that when their grandfather was buried. And it was sweet. They wanted to help with the dirt and the shovel because the little kids. But it was just heavy too, This is the king. Final answer. There's no going back. There's no way he's going to survive this, he would think. But he hopes. And so verse 18, the king goes back to his palace. What does he do that night? Verse 18. What does he do that night? Yeah, interesting. He's fasting. And what's helpful to me is I realize that this is Medo-Persia. This is the same kingdom as the book of Esther in the Old Testament. And so Esther helps me make sense of this story a little bit. Because in Esther, she tells Mordecai, Esther 4:16, please fast for me. And they don't use the word pray, but it's like built in. What's this king doing? Is he praying? He's breaking his own law. And what's interesting too, he can't sleep. if he's the king, right? If you can't sleep and you're the king, then let's have music, get me some relax, give me some medication or entertainment. We can't sleep. What's the news headlines? What notifications? Let me take meds. This man embraces the sleeplessness. Music, don't worry about it. No, I'm too upset. The situation's so heavy on me. I can't avoid it. I can't escape this. And so he spends this whole sleepless night.
Yeah, it's not even like he's, passing the night with drinking or anything to drown sorrows.
No. He is scared sober, right? Just. And I think about that. It's all night long. And so I laugh. He couldn't sleep. And often as I'm reading this, I'm trying to imagine like a God tells the story like it's a film. And you'll think like the camera swings from one person to the next, right? So all night long, the camera's focused on the king, tossing and turning, can't sleep. If the camera were to swing over to like other scenes, where else would it go?
To the group.
The group?
The group that put him in there.
Yeah, right?
Because some of the it's nice saying, I can trust him. He's my buddy, my buddy. But I got nobody here. That would.
Yeah.
Nobody here to help me out with it in this situation.
These guys showed me.
All these people that just lied to me and, try to trick me, and that's what I have to look forward to. So.
I just find it interesting that he was, what was the purpose of fasting as
He's like, is the man praying? It's possible. Because he knows that this God is a true God. We'll get to that in a moment.
He's upset, he might not be hungry either.
Yeah, lost his appetite for sure.
Yeah, that's possible.
And there's a ton of irony here, right? He loses his appetite because the lions, they probably took care of their appetite. If the camera's swinging on like the other guys, they're probably snoring right now. They're like, oh, we got to figure it out,
I would say the musicians, as they're baffled.
Yeah, they're a little confused. Good point.
What would he do? He doesn't want to play music this time.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Yeah.
And he's like so sorrowful.
Yeah.
Leave him alone.
One place that we can't look is inside the den. That's not allowed. The camera cannot go inside the den right now. Because when I'm reading the story, I have to pretend I don't know the end of the story yet. It's really hard, but that's what adds to the power of the story. So if the camera goes to like the den, all it's going to show is the stone and the seal, and that's it.
Yeah.
I can't look inside the den yet, because that's a spoiler, and I don't know what happens next. The king doesn't know, so that's why we're waiting. So let's keep going. Here comes the next part. So read verses 19 through 23. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Dramatic pause. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. Forasmuch as before him innocency was found in me. And also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. Really powerful. So here's the next morning. Darius finally gets to dawn, probably the longest night of his life. Verse 19, we just want to appreciate this. Time is dawn. Person is King Darius.
The shock and joy could be unimaginable.
Oh, man. In verse 19, how does he travel to the den of lions? Hey, the man's running. I gotta find out. I couldn't sleep all night. There's no way, but just maybe, this servant of the living God is alive. And then verse 20, when he comes to the den, it's a lamentable voice. The man, like his voice is crying, like, Daniel. I can't try to imitate, no one can, but there's this desperation. The man hasn't slept, probably looks miserable, so haggard, and this croaking voice. And what I appreciate is what he calls Daniel, right? Servant of the living God. The living God. Later, verse 26, he'll refer to God as the living God. And notice the question he asks. What question does he ask in verse 20?
Is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lions?
Is thy God able to deliver thee? Is God able? That's the question of the story. Is God able? Is he really that powerful?
This was but a small thing for God.
Yeah, right.
Wrong question he asked. Did he?
And so he asks this question, is he able? And I'll just pause and have us flip back to chapter 3, because this is one of many different parallels that we're going to find in the story.
It's the right question for a non-believer.
Is he able, right? Chapter 3, let's look at verse 17. This is the response of the three Hebrew young men to Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 17, they say, if it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. What do they say? He is able. Here's Daniel 6. Question comes up, is your God able? And then Daniel's writing this story for the whole kingdom to read. And they're going to see, without a doubt, this God is very able to do this. He is able. And so as we continue in the story, verse 20, is he able to deliver thee? Verse 21, if you're doing if you're producing the movie, you want that dramatic pause where you don't know what happens next. And then King Daniel's voice pops up. O king, live forever. Just like the first time the officials greeted the king, verse 6, O king, live forever. You asked if I'm the servant of the living God. I'm hoping that you live forever. You'll be the living God, maybe not. And then verse 22, Daniel just testifies what happened. What has God done? We want to appreciate the details of this answer. He's done two things. God has sent his angel, and he has shut the lions' mouths. And because of that, obviously, they haven't been able to hurt me. But I just appreciate this. Did God need to send an angel? No. He could have just shut the lions' mouths. But he sent the angel, and then he shut the lions' mouths. And as a kid, I remember that they would say, yeah, the angel shut the lions' mouths. But actually, I don't read that the angel shut the lions' mouths. God does. Why is the angel there? Yeah, to be right there with them. Isn't that special? And if you think about this, go back to chapter 3. Is there an angel that shows up in chapter 3? Yeah, walking right there with those guys in the middle of the fiery furnace. Unbelievable. And so Daniel just testifies, and this picture helps a little bit, but this is one of the only pictures I could find where it's an angel, not just Daniel by himself. Daniel did not spend the night by himself. He was reassured, surrounded by these hungry lions. Even if their mouths are closed, they could probably try to attack him with their claws, and yet nothing happens. The man probably got a great night's sleep. Now, why is that? Verse 22. Why haven't they hurt me? He explains two reasons. First of all, because before him, that's God, innocency was found in me. Daniel says, I am innocent before God. That's the most important judge. Before God, I have nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to hide. And also, verse 22, also before thee have I done no hurt. King, I didn't offend God. I'm innocent before him. I'm innocent before you. And that's important because remember, when they first accused Daniel, they made it sound very personal, right? Oh, king, he disobeyed you. Can you believe that he doesn't like you very much? It's kind of like middle school drama, right? And Daniel's like, actually, no, I do like you. Like, I'm full of integrity before you.
Like I said last week, it's like, yeah, I like the king, just not the law.
Yeah. And that just, I can appreciate that. A lot in the New Testament, Paul talks about having a conscience void of offense toward God and men. I've done everything. I've nothing to be embarrassed about. 2 Corinthians 5:11, we are made manifest unto God. And I trust also your conscience. Before God, God knows I'm trying to please him. And if the other person doesn't get it, you know what? Doesn't matter to me. He's the real judge. But Daniel can say, I haven't hurt God or you. So because of this, the king is overjoyed. And now we'll finish up. They pull Daniel up from the lion's den. Notice his emotional response. At this point, if you don't have a lot of sleep, you can be kind of more emotionally roller coaster. This is the king. terrified. Now verse 23, exceeding glad. He's alive. He's thrilled about this. Pull him up out of the den. So they pull him up out of the den. Come on, you're not fast enough. Go quick, grab the rope, pull him up. And they look at him. End of verse 23. Has he hurt a little bit? Not at all, nothing at all. Guess what? In chapter 3, no hurt at all. Their clothes aren't even burned. Remember that detail. Why is this? And this probably is the most important phrase in the whole story. No bruise, nothing. He believed in his God. That's why. Because he believed in his God. And that is going to be one of the biggest takeaways for us, right? Well, let's finish the story. Verses 24 to 28. Here's some of we got to wrap up all these loose ends like a good story would. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel. And they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions had the mastery of them. They overpowered them. And they brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So we're going to get to the point now where we're seeing some resolution here. Darius, first of all, has this intense emotional response. I'm so excited. And then, oh yeah, those guys. Strong emotional response. Bring them here. And so they call these men. Verse 24 says they accused Daniel. I was really fascinated to find this in some of the commentaries. In the Aramaic, it's actually a word play. They accused him. What it means is they had eaten the pieces of Daniel. That's the way they would say it. So these men tried to eat Daniel's pieces, was the way in their language they would say, like, yeah, they tried to just accuse him and like ruin him. But actually, that's the exact opposite. Apparently, they were really big into having people ripped up in pieces and eaten. What do you think about the punishment? How does the king punish them? Yeah, and their families. Yeah?
That's what he was all night thinking about. How am I going to get these guys?
I got to find 3 new presidents, not just one. So he punishes them all. And part of us like, is that fair? But yet, on the other hand, we go back to Esther chapter 9, verse 10. Haman had 10 sons. And all 10 of those sons were killed as well as part of the punishment against Haman. And I know God himself at times has a whole family killed. Think of Achan in Joshua 7, right? They burn him and his whole family. And there are some times that, and this has been a very heavy thought to me at times, sometimes the dad's sin directly affects the whole family. And that has really sobered me a lot, right? But they do, and you notice the timing of the punishment. How quickly is this? They can't even get to the bottom of the den. They don't touch the ground yet. And these lions, their mouths have been opened by now, and they're just like jumping at them. And you can see the way they describe kind of how pretty graphic, how effective they were at killing them.
You know, you can almost imagine it like when Daniel came down, God said, wait, this is something, you're going to eat something like this much more later. And then, lions had to wait, and the next moment, when that all came down, the lions are ready.
If you wait now, you'll have an even bigger meal tomorrow. Yeah. And so that's the destruction of his enemies. He gives this edict, right? And we just really can be amazed at this. Who gets this message from Darius? Verse 25. Verse 25. Everybody, right? Every language, every nation connected to Babylon. This has got to be an international bulletin. Everybody needs to know about this. And you would say that sounds familiar because at the end of chapter 3, that's what Nebuchadnezzar does. An international bulletin. Every people, nation, language need to respect the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the end of chapter 3. And so here at the end of chapter 6, everybody needs to respect the God of Daniel. Why? Because of who he is. What kind of God is this? In verse 26. He is the living God. He is the living God. And I just did a quick search, the living God. It's really astounding to see times when this shows up. Actually, I'll save that when we get to the themes. But yeah, he calls him the living God, and then he's steadfast forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. We put it this way, his kingdom is forever, unable to be destroyed. And then what he does. He delivers, he rescues. For example, he delivered Daniel. So he declares this international edict, and then the last verse, verse 28. So Daniel continued, and he prospered. He continued to serve Darius. And then also after Darius, when Cyrus the Persian takes over and kind of assumes the reins of the empire more directly. And that's powerful, because now we're getting to the end of the exile. Because Cyrus is the one who says, you guys can go back. So we're really connecting the dots here. Really significant. Let's jump to the themes then. What stood out to you? What are the big ideas? And I'm looking at the time. We need to wrap it up here soon. But I'm curious, what stood out to you?
Our God saves.
Yeah. Delivers. I mentioned the parallels idea with Daniel 3, but then I just began to see, oh wait, that matches the stories of Jesus. Falsely accused, had done nothing wrong. Let's seal him in the tomb. No one can get in. And then, you know what, actually, he's delivered. He's brought back to life. I was also struck with the idea of what they're believing in and trusting in, right? Daniel trusted in his God. What could Darius trust in? Remember, he claimed to be God. He had to trust himself. That didn't work out too well. He did not have all the answers, not have all the resources. He was stuck. He was frustrated and limited. And yet Daniel was confident in God because, and this is kind of the biggest theme of all, is God's power, his superior power over his enemies. So I mentioned God is the living God. Other stories where God is called the living God is the story of David and Goliath. This giant hath defied the armies of the living God, David says. 2 Kings 19 is when the Assyrian king Sennacherib mocks Jerusalem. That's when God wipes out like the whole army overnight. And Hezekiah's like, I wonder what's going to happen because he mocked the living God. He loves showing himself as the living God in contrast with these enemies. And what was most powerful for me is, I'll mention a verse, you can write down the reference, Jeremiah chapter 10, and perhaps verses 6 through 10. Because there, Jeremiah is just comparing God to these false idols, these dead gods around them. Verse 7 of Jeremiah chapter 10, Who would not fear thee, King of nations? For to thee doth it appertain, forasmuch as among all the wise men of the nations, and in all their kingdoms there is none like unto thee. They're altogether brutish, foolish. And I'll go down to verse 10. But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and an everlasting King. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation. Just powerful comments about God as the living God against all others. So he has superior power over his enemies, but it's also on behalf of his people. He delivers. That's what he does. And I love this about God. You can have someone who's really strong, but if they're strong and rough, no one wants to be around them. But if they're strong and gentle, and they've got your back, that's the best position to be in, right? This is a God of all power, and he uses his power to deliver his people and to protect them.
And
Yeah.
even when he's delivering his people, he still wants mercy and grace beyond those enemies also.
Yeah, you're right there.
Ain't that weird?
Yeah.
Even like when Moses left, God said, he wanted Egypt to be safe through all that stuff too.
Yeah.
While they were beating them up, I want Egypt to be safe too.
Yeah.
So even in his deliverance for his own, he still cares for people that aren't.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder how long was Daniel interacting with these guys? He must have been sharing the gospel. He must have been testifying of God to them all the time. They knew he prayed.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
I personally believe that's why we had the Magi, because of Daniel.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Because they came from the far west, and how many kings saw his greatness and his loyalty to the greatness of God? So,
Yeah, long time, powerful.
close to the scripture, I just believe we got the Magi across.
I love that idea. That's great. Yeah. And then I guess, the story of Daniel is going to be passed down. They're going to remember this story. This is really fast, like many kings saying that this God is so powerful. And then what also just really challenged me is this idea of enemies are lions. So someone was touring Assyria, or this area of Babylon, and they came across this archaeological dig, and people had found the palace of Darius. And one of the walls at his main entrance of his palace had fallen down to the ground, and they found all these pieces of the wall, and it was like a puzzle, and they put it back together. And this is the puzzle that they put back together. Here's Darius the lion. And I just laugh at that. So, he loves lions. And I remember even reading that, was it Saddam Hussein, when he's in charge of Iraq, his sons, they had pet lions that they would use just to execute people. Just even like more modern days, right? But I just think about God's delivering us from our enemies, a lion. And it's not a stretch at all, right? The devil is a lion. He roars to try to destroy us, but he cannot. And I just find such confidence and hope in my God. He delivers. He uses all his power to deliver me and protect me from the evil one. And there can be such comfort even when I'm by myself surrounded by lions. Let's finish real quick. 2 applications that I'm going to suggest, kind of obvious. We trust in the living God for deliverance. I trust you and no one else. I resort to God. Of course, if I need my oil changed, I'm going to take it to the person who can do it, mechanic. But ultimately, I'm trusting God. My confidence is in God and his word and his promises. And I'm going to praise him like Darius did for his limitless power. His power is endless in like size and in age. He doesn't get weaker over time. He's the same stable, consistent God. And I just found my faith just really growing as I just finished chewing on the story and reflecting on that. I hope that's the case for you as well. We're going to pray, and let's just thank God for his faithfulness to us. Let's bow in prayer. Lord, there's so much more we could have said. We want to put our trust in the Lord our God. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. We run into it and are safe. Daniel, by faith, Hebrews 11 tells us, shut the mouths of lions. And so we praise you that we can read a story, a true story, how you delivered someone who was righteous and honorable and yet threatened and in danger. And we praise you that we as your people can walk by faith in your promises. We are righteous because of your Son and his declaration of innocence. And we're so humbled and embarrassed by that, O Lord. And we praise you that your power is now focused and you're poised to act, to deliver us. And so we take comfort in you. And even during a long night, we have the presence of your Spirit. And we know that you are with us, O Lord. And so we praise you that you, at the end of the day, will defeat the lions. And you will defeat the enemies. And we will continue to prosper until the land is restored. There's so much reason to praise you and trust you. Please build our faith and keep us strong moving forward into this new week. In Jesus' name, amen.